We're here today to kind of get the final findings from our Events Campus Study Group that has been meeting for the past several months. And it's actually been a lot of work. I was talking with Dan, who's one of the co-chairs, and he said, Paul, this has been a little bit more intense than I thought it was going to be. And that's typically how these things go. So what I wanted to do by kicking things off today was to thank those who participated in this work, because it was a lot of work. And I also realize that this project and that campus itself is it's such a critical part of our city's DNA that making sure we get this right is extremely important. So also a lot of, I don't want to say pressure, but the expectations are quite high from this report and what we're going to be doing with it. So I want to thank these folks who gave their time for this, some of you who are here. First off, Ryan Peaty and Dan Stadma, who co-chaired this. I want to thank you guys for all the time and effort you put into this work. Some of the other members were Danny Amundsen, Dr. Tamara Ennels, Eric Gaikowski. Eric, thanks for being here. Tom Hurlbert, Andrea Miller, Jared Nesji, Tony Knorr, Eric Nyberg. Eric, thanks for being here. Orland Cheddar, appreciate you being here, OT. And then Councilor Kurt Sale was part of this as the council as well. So today what's really going to happen is we're going to get the final findings from the group. The city's going to get those, and then the city is going to be responsible for initiating a plan as a result of this. There's been some information that's been out there already as to some of the recommendations of this group, but after today we'll know a lot more, and then we'll begin formulating a plan at City Hall on how we're going to move forward. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dan and Ryan to talk about the final report, and then I'll be back up with some other remarks, and then we'll take some questions. So Dan, thanks, buddy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to start with some thank yous myself. When we started down this journey, we needed a lot of information, and there were a lot of groups that helped this group get educated in a hurry on all the intricacies involved with the campus. Specifically, Terry and her team at SMG provided a lot of great information, a lot of background. Mike Cruson and his team at SMG were also great. The Canaries Sports Authority and the school district all helped with that educational component, which really helped set the stage for having an educated conversation on the different components of the campus. So really like to thank those groups and anybody else I forgot for helping give us a good background and infrastructure to the rest of the conversations. I'd like to thank the citizens of Sioux Falls. Between the survey we did, and the little public forums we had, especially the online survey where we had more than 1,200 responses. It was great to see the community weigh in, and it's important to know that we talked about those survey results over and over and over again. They played a big role in the direction the committee took and some of the decisions we made as it regards to the campus. I'd like to thank the mayor and his team, TJ and Scott and Sean, specifically, who, again, helped provide a lot of context, a lot of good information about the campus, the history, and also kind of the direction of different things within the community and things that might affect that campus as we went forward. One of the things I'm proud of for this committee is how transparent we were, how open we were with all the meetings being open, all the public survey and input we sought throughout the process, again, played a vital role in these final recommendations. So proud of the work that Eric and his team did to really make sure we gave multiple opportunities, touch points to engage in the process, see the meetings, hear the dialogue, and to get to the point where we are today with the final recommendations. One of the harder parts of this committee, they're all very passionate about Sioux Falls. They donated many, many hours. They donated their professional services abilities that they had. We had a great cross-section on the committee. We oftentimes talked about the scope of the committee, and because they are so passionate about the success of Sioux Falls, getting them again to refocus their scope onto this campus. It's tough to do because everything affects everything else, but making sure we revisited that scope, brought it back to the public facilities on the campus, and go from there. With that, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Peedy.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks again, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity. Well, we won't take you line by line of the recommendations, but this final report will be available online where everyone can view it and all the details and assumptions that went along with it. This certainly isn't the first group or committee to discuss the Event Center campus. Since 2004, there's been 3 different groups that have looked at this campus and provided recommendations to the city. Our task was to take the long view and to say, what does this campus look like in the year 2040? And so we really did do a deep dive and took a lot of information in and tried to understand what is the best path forward. As a community, we've done a lot of things right out at the Event Center. And the Premier Center is certainly the shining example of that, but it would be a missed opportunity for the community to not leverage this foundation of success. For those that grew up in Sioux Falls or around Sioux Falls, many have fond memories of the arena, whether it's a state championship basketball game or taking in a Canaries game and watching Pedro Guerrero suit up. But the arena and the baseball stadium were built in the early 1960s, and they're starting to show their age. And if you look at the facilities out there, a significant amount of money has been invested over the last several years. Both facilities are currently running at pretty significant operating losses. And then you look into the near term, the next 2 to 5 years, additional investments are required just to keep the facilities running and maintained as they are. When you look at the convention center, it was built in 1994, and it's certainly served the city well and continues to do so. The challenge we have there is that our space is limited. And when you look at our competitor peer cities in the region, we're behind in terms of convention center space, and we need to do something about it. Des Moines has 4 times the convention center space, Rochester 3.5 times the space, and when you look at other comparable peer cities such as Wichita, Grand Rapids, Michigan, Madison, Wisconsin, all have significantly more space. So we're behind and we need to do something of it. And so in summary, the study group final report recommends to the city that we remove the arena, construct new convention center space, and in time relocate the baseball stadium. In addition to expanding the convention center, we suggest the city undertake a master plan out at the facility to take a deeper dive at looking at improving parking, connectivity, economic development opportunities, and also hotel opportunities that will further support economic development opportunities out at the campus. The Premier Center has given us real momentum out at the campus, and by focusing on these recommendations, our group is confident that the Event Center campus will continue to provide memories to the citizens of this community for the next 60 years, but also take advantage of the opportunities in front of us. So thank all the members of the study group for participating, and Mr. Mayor, thank you. We'll give it back to you.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah. All right, so now what? Now what do we do? We have the report. We have some pretty bold recommendations that are being made by this committee. Ultimately, the final decision for the next steps will sit with the City Council and with the administration on how we move ahead. Some of the things, though, that are being recommended, like the removal of the arena, for instance, those are things that we don't take lightly at all. Realizing the kind of institutional history of the arena in our city. Last week I had a meeting with the Shriners Lady Auxiliary, and you can guess what they wanted to talk about. They want to talk about the circus and the arena and what happens if the arena goes away. And so we're having those conversations right now to make sure that what we do with these recommendations are good for the entirety of the community. And so what we'll be doing as an administration is sitting down and developing a master plan for that campus now based on these recommendations. I like them. I like what I've heard. I like the need that was realized for more convention space. I think if you talk to our CVB, they will tell you that we miss out on a lot of opportunities for Sioux Falls because of that and because of our convention space shortage. And so this, an increased convention space capacity would catapult us to the next level in terms of who we're competing with in bringing events to Sioux Falls. And again, the goal with bringing events to Sioux Falls is to increase the sales tax base and sales tax revenue, hotel tax, that sort of thing. So I'm excited about that. One thing I do want to just address is the other recommendation about baseball and the long-term goal of what the future of baseball looks like in our city with that facility. I'd have to look more into the report, but I at first blush agree with the recommendations of the aging infrastructure of our baseball stadium. And kind of to use a business example, if I have two businesses, one that's losing money and one that's making money in terms of convention space and a baseball stadium, you have to determine where the best use of taxpayer dollars can be put. Is it to increase revenues or to continue to facilitate losses? And that's what we'll have to look at as the city as well, to see where the best ROI can be realized for a baseball stadium. As you've seen in the media, there are conversations happening. There's different venues that are being considered in the court of public opinion for baseball in our city. We'll continue to look at that as an administration. We're having some of those same conversations as well and look forward to where those lead. But right now they're just very much in the early first inning, I'll say, of conversation. Kind of in closing, and then I'd love to take questions on this and this report and anything else from the media, is I just want to again thank those of you who participated in this. If one thing you've learned from me over the past 18 months, if nothing else, it's that I take these reports and this sort of input very seriously. You've seen how I've turned loose a team on transit and said we've looked at transit for 2 decades. And we're not just going to do a report and sit on it and kick the can down the road for the next administration. We're going to act on it, and we're acting on transit. This is an initiative that we're going to act on, and there's going to be progress and vision and change coming from our office on this tremendous investment that we've made in the past to further maximize it into the future. So with that, again, thank you to the task force. Thank you to Ryan and Dan for all your work, and we'd love to open it up to any questions that anyone may have for me today. I'm going to let you guys stay up here, though, because this is part of the game, okay? You're almost done, okay? Serve to the end. Any questions from the group?
What's the timeline for creating this master plan? Does the master plan have to be created before you demolish the arena?
It does, you know, and I think our goal would be in 2020 for us to bring a plan forward to the council that addresses specifically the arena and more convention space. So, you know, we have our first reading of our city budget tonight. So we're a year out from our next city budget really being put together. Now there's going to be some bond implications to some of these things, but we're a little ways out before we talk about spending taxpayer dollars on this. But I would say in 2020, there's going to be a plan that's going to be coming forward from our administration on spending some dollars to address what's in the report.
Does that satisfy you guys? I know at the last meeting, you guys said we need to tear down the arena tomorrow. So,
I think that's the logical course of action in terms of timelines. I think that's the logical course of action. One of the things we struggled with as a group is there were so many variables and they all played together closely. So the need for a master plan comes because we have some high-level recommendations on we think we need more convention center space. We need another full-service hotel. Where they go and how that all lays out is still very tricky and still more variables there, thus the need for a master plan to help guide it for the campus for many more years. And
I'll say it's $1.5 million to demo that arena, you know, and so that thing is built like a tank. And so that's the other thing is we first have to find funding if we just simply wanted to demo the arena. The second thing though is I want to make sure, as I stated earlier, that the handful of anchor tenants that we do have are taken care of and are comfortable with the go forward plan if the arena goes away. That being Southeast Tech, for instance, has their graduation there. It's the only place that holds Southeast Tech for their graduation. School district, places like that, that they know that if that goes away, we've worked with them on an alternative plan for those sorts of events. Even though they're small, they're not revenue makers for the city, it's the right, you know, approach to take as a good community partner with some of those tenants that we have right now. Augustana's already moving their basketball season over to the Pentagon. That was a big tenant. The High School Athletic Association has also said that they're very comfortable if the arena would go away at finding alternative arrangements for where to play the state tournaments. So those two big tenants were very important for us to make sure that they're taken care of.
Are there still discussions, or will there be, about the land around the event center campus, about bringing more businesses, more hotels, so 20, 30 years from now, we're not having the same discussion about what to do with the Premier Center if nothing develops up there?
Well, I'll push back a little bit on the premise of the question, because we're not really struggling with what to do with the Premier Center. The Premier Center is great in serving a purpose. What we're trying to figure out is what to do with aging facilities and how we capitalize on the success of the facilities that are already there. You know, economic development, I hear this question a lot. The city of Sioux Falls cannot dictate economic development. The private market dictates economic development. What the city can do is to try and spur economic development through proper planning, through infrastructure development, through making huge capital investments, which we've had. But as we've seen, the economic development has not followed. So at some point, the city also has to realize we need to accept our campus for what it is, which is an amazing event venue, great convention space, but it's detached from our downtown. Landowners aren't salivating at gobbling up other property. So that leaves the city of Sioux Falls with the dilemma of, okay, how do we encourage a connection and a corridor with our downtown? How do we improve transportation? How do we maybe incent economic development from things that haven't already been done, which is investing in some amazing venues? Do we feel if we tore this baseball stadium down and put a new one in that exact same spot, that all of a sudden development would happen? I don't think so, because it's already been there. So all we can do as the city of Sioux Falls is try and make it as attractive as possible to developers, but what we can also do is put money towards areas where the market has already said there is demand. In one conversation it has been had already, it's been in the media, is what's happening with Sanford and their sports complex and the growth there and the excitement and the energy there. So those are certainly discussions we're having with them as a potential partner. The market has already said, hey, we're interested out there. So it would make logical sense that we would have conversations with what could happen out there and connect with our facility as well. So, but great point. They said it earlier that 2040, this is a 2040 plan. So if we're looking ahead, the first 2040 thing we worked on in our administration was our sewer plant, make sure we can flush our toilets in 2040, and we're going to make sure that happens. Second thing is, we want to be able to sit here in 2040 and look back and say, God, I'm glad we put the balls in motion we did back in 2020. That set us up for this success. And so this is not a 4-year plan, a 5-year plan, it's a 20-year plan. And 20-year plans, I think a lot of times people underestimate what can happen in 20 years, and our downtown is a good example of that. Look what happened in the past 20 years of this downtown. I think we want a vision that will complement that out there.
There's some pretty sizable maintenance costs in the baseball stadium coming up, knowing that whatever's going to happen with baseball in 50 years away. You continue to make those investments in the baseball stadium in the meantime, knowing that you're going to tear it down in 10 years, 15 years, or you just kind of mothball it and let it go?
It's a great question. What we do have is we have a tenant at that facility who we have a contract with to continue to maintain that facility for their use. And so we'll continue to do that. If the requirement, I'll give you not a baseball example, but an arena example. Last city budget, we had about a little north of $1 million that was in the budget for new chairs. Those blue chairs and the bleachers that are shot, that was in the budget. And we put the axe to that and said, let's hold off on putting $1 million worth of chairs when we don't even know if this place is going to be open in 2 years. And so if the baseball stadium has significant life safety issues, for instance, that will make the place unsafe for fans and spectators, we'll absolutely take care of those. But if there's investments that we wouldn't be able to recoup or don't make sense to invest in because the shelf life is limited, we're going to take a hard look at those and see if they make sense. All right. One final point. Where can the report be downloaded from, the full report? Is it on the city site, but is there a specific URL or a department? /eventscampus. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for being here. Again, to the committee members that are here, really appreciate you guys serving the city in this way. Thank you. Have a good day.